Addie, right? She's Sully's age, right? She's 3?
3, yeah.
Just turned 3.
She's November birthday, so she can't start 4K next year.
Right, and that's what Sully is too. So they're the same because Sully's October. It's October. I didn't think about which kid it was. Because Everett's June.
Will he be with her?
Yeah, he'll be with Addie because he's just October of 21,
Gotcha.
and she's November. Copy. I don't need a copy. I just want to check the mail for HLSD.
I have it. First day.
Two doors down on the left is where the copy room is. It's kind of like mailboxes.
We are live, but muted.
Thank you.
Ready? All right, let's call to order at 6:33. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Who's giving public notice? Okay, all board members are in person. We don't have to vote on virtual participation. We are welcoming our newest member to the board, Niels Peterson, and he is going to take his oath of office.
Okay, I read it in front with,
Oh, you
what's
did?
her name? Gretchen, but I read it out loud. Yes, you should. I, Niels Peterson, who has been appointed to the office of school board member for the Hartland-Lakeside Elementary Joint Number 3 School District, have not yet entered upon the duties thereof, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin, and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability. So help me God.
Well, thank you.
Thank
Got
you.
your binder?
I got my binder, I got some materials, I got some reading assignments, and already a homework.
All right. So public comments. I see some new faces in the crowd. Just a quick kind of rundown of what our rules are for a public comment. You get 3 minutes to speak on your topic. Obviously, please be polite, no profanity. You can speak to whatever topic you like. It does not have to be on the agenda. Please do not call specific people out by name. And for those of you who are not used to doing this, the board does not usually respond back. We'll take what you have to say. If you have further questions that have that need answering, please email us, but we don't get into a discussion back and forth based off of public comments. Okay, thank you. All right, so the first person is Justin.
Yep. So I kind of want to talk about the incidents that happened on December 18th involving, I'm not very familiar with the situation that happened at North Shore up here. I'm mainly going to talk about what happened at Hartland South. Background me, I grew up in this area. I always wanted my kids to come to be in Hartland schools growing up, and got a house here and I'm very happy to be here. So my issue was with my 9-year-old son was one of the students that was threatened by another student and was told that they're going to bring a gun to school and shoot everyone at the table. When that incident happened, obviously it was a shock to everybody. It was just 2 days after the Madison shooting. So with that being so close and so close to home here, and knowing this community as well as I do, working with the public safety people in this area for many years, I really expected this situation to be handled better, and at least more seriously than it was. As somebody in the medical field, I understand that there are rules and concerning privacy and confidentiality. I totally understand it, but even in medical situations, there are exceptions to allow certain information to be released to individuals relevant to the situation. The initial phone call that my wife received severely downplayed the incident from the principal. There wasn't any relative information given other than that there was an incident, a serious violence incident. So nothing saying that police were involved, and the three families also, the other three families involved did not receive any more information from the school until the email that we received from Ms. Olgman. That went out to the whole district, not to just anybody individually. Then once my son came home, he told us what happened, and the next day, another email from Ms. Olgman came out and said that they are committed to she quote, "They are committed to maintaining open lines of communication with our families. If you have any questions, would like any further information, please email me directly." Well, my wife did that. She emailed Ms. Olgman acknowledging confidentiality, but also looking for more generic information. Like, will the student be back in school? Does the student have access to weapons? Again, we're not just any parent in the district. We are directly involved in this situation, and we have had zero communication from the school. So in the next few days and over the holidays, we reached out to some of the other families involved, who were also threatened. None of them.
You have 15 seconds.
None of them had any other information. I have a lot more, if you're not going to let me talk anymore about time. There's a lot of stuff that has not been released to us. We've had a lot. Ms. Wolfman specifically said that we're taking the situation seriously. That's actually not the case. Talking to all relative parties involved, we are not relative, if that's the case, because we are not being spoken to at all. I have a lot more to say, but I'm getting cut off the time. There's a lot of questions that we don't have answers to, and we've emailed the principal, and nobody wants to talk to us. I hate to go to the media, but if we're not getting answers from anybody else here, that's our only option left.
Thank you. Morgan.
My name is Morgan Henning. I just wanted to say congratulations on the article today on the Freeman. It was great to see the positive news out there, and it was nice to get to know Superintendent Goldman a little better. I think that was great, and I hope that more articles like that are going to be coming out. With the communication piece of that, and I know this is being brought up all the time, I actually have a different spin on it. I was wondering if when we're advertising things on our social media for our meetings, if more description would be better aimed at getting people to come to the meetings. Like tonight was a board planning workshop, I think, on one of them, and it doesn't give much saying, oh, it's a strategic meeting, maybe we can call that out, saying, hey, this is what the strategic planning is. Maybe I missed it, I don't think I did, but maybe I did. And then I know tonight is very fresh and very new, and I am sorry that you had to experience that, and I'm sorry that I have to even address things, but I feel as though the email that was received was hard. Probably very hard to write, I get it, and you're under a lot of pressure on that. But nowhere in the email did it say that the kids were safe, or that everyone at the scene was safe, so it seemed like something was happening, and that got a lot of people talking. I was on a lot of different communication. And then we find out on Facebook from a crime group all of the details about like the police scanner type email things like 415 or 417, 517, he was in custody, stuff like that. So it's just frustrating that those type of things can be posted, but yet we can't get them in the email. So I also know that is your hands tied on a lot of things too, and I do appreciate that you sent the email, and I do appreciate that you were there and helping the kids. And then my last thing was with strategic planning, and forgive me if I've missed this, what the end goal to have strategic planning was, the deadline, with President Hawley being done in April, if that's going to continue after her, how new board members' perspectives will be incorporated with all of that, and I can follow up on an email. Thank you.
That concludes our public comments. Thank you. Matt, I'm gonna hand it over to you for the finance committee.
Sure, thank you. So personally, I met with Amy a couple weeks back. We paid close attention to financial statements. You'll see our funds are expectedly low right now, just because we were waiting on, start getting payments in January for some major tax payments. So everything is aligned from a kind of revenue standpoint. Kudos to Amy, we had some, and maybe Tina as well, but we had some unexpected costs come up recently that have been determined are able to be covered by a grant, which is gonna be super helpful. I'll also call out our administration, everybody knows health insurance costs are going up, teachers are getting paid more, costs just generally go up year over year. And in December is kind of our half fiscal year. Expenses through this time last year were $7 million. Through this time this year, they're $7.17 million. So we've had increased healthcare costs, staff costs, all that sort of stuff, and really held the line on our expenses. So as evidence with the Blue Ribbon Award and those sort of things, we are doing more with less. I think that's it. We did, the rest of the meeting was just kind of our general stuff. We went through expenses and everything was in line. We pulled some expenses and everything went in order. So that's it.
Anybody have anything?
What'd you say?
Did anyone else have anything?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Okay, consent agenda's next, the approval of employee personnel report, monthly voucher and purchasing card report, school board meeting minutes from December 16th, and donations.
Motion to pass the consent agenda items.
Second.
All in favor?
Hold on.
Who's second?
Chris.
Do you have discussion?
You would have discussion?
Just announce who the donations
Sure.
are from, just to give
Go ahead.
credit. So we received a $500 Angel Fund donation from the Mark Gall Fidelity Charity and a $100 donation from the Special Olympics for the Buddies Club. So thank you very much for your donations to the district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, consent agenda approved.
I page back to what I just typed, I don't know why I went to the screen. Who motion to approve? I'm sorry.
I did, Matt Schwab.
Thank you. And then Chris, you seconded, right?
Yes.
Sorry, for some reason it reverted and removed my typing. Thank you.
Just let me know when you're ready. You ready?
No,
Okay.
I'm good.
Alright, last resolutions and policies. Discussion and decision, I didn't think decision was, that's a misprint, but on board seat vacancy policy 0142.5.
Want me to lead it off since I brought it up?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll go into more detail on my thoughts on this if there's some debate or we want to have back and forth on this. What I would like to do is have the policy committee, if the board agrees, look at our policy for appointing a vacant board seat and to have an initial consideration the votes received in the previous election. If somebody has won, my thought would be look at some level of percentage. If the next highest voter got, say, 75% the votes of the person who was elected, you would offer the position to that person to fill out on a temporary basis, and then they go through the normal election versus having it be a straight committee decision. We've had two in the last 2 years, and there's no the arguments, a lot of people have made arguments, I'm not naive to it, they've been self-serving arguments, I knew they wanted to be appointed to the seat, so if the next highest vote getter was somebody they thought should be appointed, everybody said we should go for the next highest votes, and then if it wasn't, it's like we should consider other things, and then, you know, I think there's, the same argument was made by different people the next time it was open, and I think, you know, I ran for a seat when Chris was appointed, when it was, because he had just lost by a handful of votes to Amy Hucker Murray. Looking back, he had put himself out there and run, and it made some sense. I would have been kind of pissed if I was him, that I showed up the day, you know, an open seat, and I got appointed because more people liked me than him when he had a lot of votes. I think it was a similar situation this last time. You know, Neil's missed out on a seat by 100 votes. If we went to Neil's and he said no, Lydia was maybe 100 votes behind him, so go to Lydia. But two people put themselves out. If there's some material number of votes from the community, these are elected positions, I think it would save ourselves a lot of time. We got a lot of emails on this thing. I'd like to make it kind of a standard process. And I think the vote threshold is something so you know, the town drunk gets 5 votes because his buddies say it and we have to appoint him. You know, it's like if somebody has a material amount of votes, come up with a percentage. I'd like to modify that to be the first thing, and then if that person says no, then we go through our normal process.
So we're saying we wanna take it to PPC?
Well, if people agree with the process, what I think PPC should do is figure out how to draft it and put it in, and then we just get the process in. But it's not my decision to make, it's a 5-person board, so people agree with it.
I mean, I'd like to see if other districts do anything similar, so maybe we can do some Neola research across.
Can we do Neola research now?
Sure, we can look at some different policies on this. This is the Neola policy, so you know, what they gave us wouldn't fall in line with that, but absolutely, we can look at and bring it forward. We'll just take a look at it at PPC and bring what we find back, and we can continue the conversation.
So a couple questions, and one point is, I'm just gonna say for now, I'm gonna abstain for whatever vote is gonna happen with this, considering I got appointed to the board. So I'm gonna give my opinions to the board, but I'm gonna abstain from the vote, because I don't think that I should vote on this, yes or no. The second thing, with the PPC, and I didn't see it in here, can we figure out, I would like to be on the PPC.
We put you on it last month.
Perfect.
Surprise!
Great. And then I do think it'd be nice to see if there are comparables, but I also think that because we've been through this twice in 2 years, I think even if there aren't comparables, I kind of agree that having some transparent guidelines, I think would go a long way to giving the board some guidance versus kind of what Matt referred to as using the same guidelines to argue for and against something, because I think I agree with that. I didn't like it.
So I'm just gonna throw my opinion out here. I don't think you should have stayed in the vote, but it's your choice. You're on the board and you get a vote, and it's just because you were part of a vacancy process there's not a conflict of interest.
But yeah, I think taking it up at PPC and then making a
Well, but
proposal.
what if, we shouldn't take it up for PPC if nobody thinks they should do it. I'd like the discussion to say, I think we should do it. If people think we should do it, then I think PPC should just do it.
I'd be interested in knowing what other policies are out there that have any semblance of closeness to this idea, so.
Well, and to your point, we can draft something and bring it to the board as a proposal, and then as a board, we can say yup, or we can say no.
That's fine. I'd be curious to get other people's opinions before we go to PPC. I mean, you and Chris can hash yours out, but we got other board members sitting here.
I'd be interested in what else is out there. To me, I think the process is good, it works. I think there's a good portion of that interview process that you get to know the candidates and the different point in time when election is, even where it's at. So I think it allows everybody to be into it, to apply for it. So I do like the process the way it is.
I mean, I'm open to exploring, so.
So is there a motion coming out of this?
No,
or-
we're not really making a decision on it.
I was gonna say, we could just come up with something, discuss it at PPC, draft something
Yeah,
and.
the decision will come with
Yeah.
the absolute policy
Yep.
change.
Assuming there's a recommendation.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the goal of the committee should be to research it
Mhm.
and then bring the information.
Great.
Any more discussion? Okay. Okay, new business, first on the agenda is discussion and decision on HLEF grants.
So we just wanted to bring this out of donations because it is a sizable contribution and we wanted to highlight the great things that the foundation is doing for our school district. So there were 5 grants granted or just over $11,000. So the first grant was for 1888 for the Betty Bragg Museum. There was a $1,200 grant for basketballs. There was a $350 grant for recorders for 3rd and 4th grade. Our music teacher asked for $2,000 for the musical to help support that program. And then also, as you know, the district did receive the blue ribbon and we were able to send 7 staff to that conference in December, and the foundation is supporting that by doing a contribution of $6,000, which is huge. So those were the 5 grants that we received. So we just need the board to review and approve those.
I'll give a motion to approve the grants.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Thank you.
Fundraising.
That's right. Chris, let me know when you're ready.
Chris. Ready.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, grants approved. Next, discussion and decision on the insurance broker.
Okay, so as you recall, we are doing everything we can to mitigate costs and felt that it was important for us to take a look at some other options. Back in November, we had Cottingham and Butler present to the board, and then in December, we had R&R Insurance. We have very, very unique ways of looking at insurance, and we at this time, I would recommend that I, as your administrator, would like to go with Cottingham and Butler. But obviously it's open for conversation as we look into that. I'm looking at you going the why behind the Cottingham and Butler. I know you well enough for that. So the why behind the Cottingham and Butler is the history. I've worked with Cottingham and Butler in the past in my previous position and saved the district a lot of money, I mean millions of dollars, have a different unique pattern of FAHP and some different options that I think are unique and certainly could fit our demographic. I think R&R also did a great job. I'm not gonna say that they didn't and that wasn't good, but we have to choose one. So my recommendation is Cottingham and Butler.
Anyone else?
I kind of viewed it the same way. They were a little bit more creative on how they could continue to save, whereas I was more of a strategic, basically cut the middle. I saw the same things.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what you thought. I thought Cottingham and Butler from their presentation seemed to be fairly creative about thinking of ways to structure programs to save money and kind of thinking outside the box. R&R's was a little bit more straightforward, but did seem like they'd be a little bit more hands-on with helping and offering some other things that were more maybe administratively helpful for us, but might be more boilerplate. So my question was gonna be what was more appealing to you, and obviously the Cottingham and Butler was, and as a
And they
numbers
do
guy,
offer
was
a lot of the same. I don't think he had enough time to highlight some of those things, but I did ask some additional questions because unfortunately I wasn't here that night.
Mhm.
They do have wellness support, which is something that's very important to us. So I think he just didn't have a chance to highlight the additional services. They also do assist with the open enrollment process, which was very important to specifically my staff and I, because it is a hard thing to do. And to get that information into our systems. So there's a lot of things I think he just didn't have time to talk about, because I did go back and watch his presentation.
Okay, because when I was watching, I was like, well, I want R&R here, because if I were you, because it seemed like they'd help me out a lot more with stuff, but it was from like a more economic perspective and saving the district money. I thought County and Butler had a better plan.
Yes.
R&R is the one that had all the videos that you can access, right?
Correct.
Anybody else? Yeah.
When you were looking at the two plans, was there any like staff solicitation of input in terms of one or the other? Or is that not something you would do when you're talking about benefits at this high level?
So we started a staff leadership council, and so this topic did come up, and many of them were able to watch the video. I think they're just thrilled that we're looking at something different and actually trying to think outside of the box about ways to save their providers and their healthcare. I don't think they had a feeling one way or the other, but they all did go, oh yeah, was that the guy that FAHP thing? So they did, and I have about 14 of them on that committee. And their kind of sole purpose is to kind of get the vibe in the buildings and bring it back. So I feel confident in knowing that we've got some options on the table.
Yeah, I think when I was looking at the FAHP and I was here in person for that presentation, I had watched the other one. It seemed like there was a couple of more steps that the staff would have to go through and might put more of a notice on the staff that they might not have to go through now. But if they're on board with that and it helps us out as a district, then I'm happy.
Madam President. Yes. I'd like to motion to approve Cunningham Butler as the insurance provider for the 2025-2026 school year.
He's not the provider, he's the broker.
Sorry, broker.
Can we change providers?
I'll second.
Neil seconded it, and Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Insurance broker is approved. All right, we have discussion and decision on the 25-26 school calendar.
25-26 school calendar. Neil's gonna anticipate this. Yes, we did work with staff on this one. Met with our team again and worked through it. One of the things that we heard consistently coming in as from the time that I've been here in the last 18 months is, why does it feel like we're working so many more days than other areas around us? They have the day off and we're in school. Like, that's not a bad thing, right? Like, we wanna learn and we wanna be doing those things. It simply was a contract thing. So many districts in the area after Act 10 reduced back down to like 184, 186 days, whereas back during the Act 10 time and prior to that, there were like 194 to 196 days. So all the calendars around here got changed. That was something that this district didn't do. And so back, by popular demand, we brought back that schedule. And so additionally, looking for, again, cost-saving measures, one thing that this district did that was unique was having those half days on Wednesdays once a month. And we have to bus the students separate because it's an extra bus line. So we have to pay more for that busing. So as we started looking at options to reduce costs, options for flow, options for families who may have students who are here and students who are Arrowhead who are on different calendars or different busing schedules. We took into consideration all of those pieces. We removed the Wednesday half days, and we are looking at some PD days on Fridays and Mondays that align with Arrowhead's schedule. And we also are looking at the full week of Thanksgiving. That we will not be having students, but that Monday, the 24th, there will be staff. The holiday break in December runs from the 20th of December through January 4th. We'll be back in school on the 5th. Again, aligning ourselves with the other districts, giving us a half day end of school year on June 10th.
Man, that's deep into June.
Yeah. Arrowhead's going until the 12th, so we felt pretty good about the 2.5 days that we were not doing it. Staff were really happy with this. They were really great, and they're very mindful of things like parent-teacher conferences and what their schedules and what they have going on, and thinking about parents. Like originally it landed on Fridays, and they were like, I really don't think our parents are gonna wanna come at 6 o'clock to a parent-teacher conference, so can we do Thursday evenings with Friday morning? So really, really great feedback and back and forth to create this calendar.
Question.
Sure.
With the movement towards no school on some Mondays and some Fridays, and I think back to when we were looking at the district report cards, and I think you had mentioned one of the highlights where we were falling short as a district was in attendance and truancy. Do you think that if families are all of a sudden thinking, oh, well, I just take my kid out of school on Monday and I can take a 4-day vacation somewhere, you think that, I guess that would be my concern. I don't know if any action needs to come of it, but I would be interested in looking at attendance rates for this calendar year and using that as kind of like an evaluation metric to see if moving to whole days off Mondays and Fridays affects our attendance rate.
So we did actually discuss that and thought that it was actually the reverse of that, in that people would hold off and say, oh my gosh, we can go to the cabin on Thursday night and have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and come home Sunday night and come back to school on Monday and not have to take off X day or Y day. So that was the conversation. So we saw the flip side as a positive from that perspective.
Yeah.
And then that half day Wednesday does count as a day in school. So if parents are, like you can think of like, oh, let's go do something. I don't know, go up to the Dells for the day. It's only a half day, right? We're only missing a half day instead of a full day. That would count against us. So I agree with you. I'll be real curious to see what that attendance piece looks like as well. But we actually saw it in the opposite way of that, as an opportunity for our families.
And then when this gets published, can we come up with a way to highlight that last day of school is a half day?
Yeah, it should have a mark through it.
Okay.
We'll just mark that, we'll slash that, not a problem.
So Wednesday half days are gone, there's just
Yes.
more Friday full days on.
And we'll
I
still
think
do a
that's better.
professional
I think
development.
that's easier. I think Wednesdays, I appreciate it.
It's probably easier on parents too in terms of
But working families, for
childcare,
sure.
yeah.
And I think having the 2 weeks for winter break be Monday to Friday, that's nice, and not coming back on a Thursday, Friday, and then coming back. I like that.
Arrowhead alignment's huge for their student goals.
Yes.
That was my big thing, thank you, because the transportation savings would be good.
A motion to approve the 25-26 school calendar.
Second that. Before we vote, would there be any reason why, or to solicit, from, since I think, is this the first time that anybody in the district would have seen the proposal outside of the staff? Is it worth it to wait a month and see if anybody else has feedback that we may have missed as a board, or is that pretty unlikely and we're good?
Yeah, I'll tell you my philosophy on that. My philosophy on asking questions that
Get a lot more responses.
Right? So I don't know are we asking because we truly are going to change this calendar? Or are we asking just because we want people to feel, involved in the process? Certainly, calendars are one of those things that really have to do with days of the week for each quarter and each semester, and DPI is connected to them. And at this point, I would say, Niels, it's probably too late for us to go back out and ask if everybody likes the calendar, but certainly we can have discussions in the future about what that looks like. I think for us, the most important part was making sure we met our minutes, making sure that staff got the time that they needed for work days, and that they felt comfortable with the calendar. So if that helps you.
Yep.
Great, so we had a second on the table. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Calendars approved for 25-26 school year. Okay, superintendent report?
Open enrollment.
Oh, I just skipped it over. over open enrollment area, sorry. Okay, discussion and decision on 25-26 open enrollment seats.
Yes, so we actually talked about this a little bit in finance because it is tied to the budget. But this is something that happens this time every year. So what we do is we take our current enrollment and basically move anyone from kindergarten to first grade to kind of have a starting point for available seats. For 4K, we use the number that we have this year, so that's why that's highlighted yellow on there, because it is our best guess for what we think the incoming 4K would be. Anticipated number of teachers, that just shows where our current staffing is, and then the student-teacher ratio for that. For the 25-26 proposed open enrollment seats, what we did is looked at that bottom totals. So our current enrollment at the time was 1094. When we look at each grade moving up a level, it looked like we were going to decrease. So what we did was try to bring that number back up to where we started the year, which was around 1100. So that's how those proposed seats come into play. It's just trying to maintain where we were at each grade level. We do need to have one open seat at each grade level if we want to accept students. So that's why you see some that just have one, because we do need to offer a seat for anyone who might be interested. And then that final column, potential student-teacher ratio, is just so that you know what the classroom sizes might be if we were to get all of those open enrolled students.
With the current staffing,
With the
no
current
changes,
staffing,
almost like
yes,
that's
exactly. If we change nothing in our staffing, this is what the enrollment would be.
Wowzers.
What's your wowzer?
There's some high ones.
Well, you talking about the teacher student?
Yeah.
I think it's a little, I mean, they're higher in the middle school's wonky because of the schedule and how they do the
Yeah, I guess.
calculation.
The middle
class
school
size are
is
different.
hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
We talked about
Fair
that
point,
a little
fair
bit.
point, yeah.
Go ahead if you have more comments.
No.
Because we did discuss this in finance. My question was, so I didn't really understand how this process works, but it just, maybe others don't. Apparently if we put, whatever you put on here, if somebody applies up to that number, you have to take, right? So if we change some of these to 5, we put all these open ones 5. If 5 people say, I want to show up for 3rd grade, we have to take all 5, assuming they meet the other criteria. My question, what I wanted to talk about the board is like, as parents explore open enrollment and you look at like only 1 seat available in 3rd through 5th, my concern is that turn people off who might be interested in coming to a high performing school from applying, because it's like, well, I go look over at somewhere else across the highway and they got 5 seats, so I'm probably gonna get in there, I'm not gonna waste my time with Hartland. When in reality, if we got 5 3rd graders, would we accept them, and it would actually help us financially? So I was wondering if optically, we shouldn't put more than 1, understanding you can't just put like 10 or 15 or something in case they all show up, you gotta hire a new teacher, but optically, should you put maybe a higher number for some of these so it looks like, you know, if somebody is exploring options, you know, it's not like, I don't really have a chance to get in there, so I'm not even gonna apply, when in reality, I'm taking up.
I have a question on that too. Thank you, Matt, for sharing that. So just looking at the grid, the number of teachers and then the ratios, I mean, since we have to accept 1, is there really an impact? And I'm guessing the number 1 is because we really don't want to push those class attendances up any higher, is that
Correct.
correct? Okay. But my question is, if we are accepting 1 class goes up higher, is there a difference between 1 and 5? Because there's 5 teachers, there's 5 classes.
Right.
Is 5 almost the same as 1?
Can I add one other thing that's
Just
not
a
on
question,
there?
a question.
One other thing that's not on here either is anybody who moves to this area. So this is just open enrollment out of the area in, not anybody who moves in new.
But it also assumes everybody who's sitting here this year is sitting here next year, so it doesn't account for moving out. So I mean,
So
it's almost
snapshot, but not
Some
anything,
level.
you know.
It looks like it does account for some decrease, right?
That's
No,
like the-
that's just like you got less in kindergarten and more in 8th grade.
Oh, so that's just a
it
year
falls
over
off.
year
Yes.
graduation, okay.
So yeah, the first, our data manager does a great job of doing this, she pulls this together for us. But she just moves everyone up a grade,
Mhm.
assuming that everyone stays here. We did talk about at the finance committee that there are ins and outs that we know will occur. What we also do, or what we did last year, is once we get all those open enrollments, once it closes, we did hold a special board meeting last year so that we could approve all of them and send out notices right away to try to help with some of the things that Matt is talking about. And then anyone who's applied and did not receive a seat, then that opens up again, once we have a better understanding of where our numbers really are at. So then there's another chance for families if they're interested to still open enroll later in the year.
I guess another question I have is we talk about open enrollment. And I'm gonna ask questions you might not have the data for or the answers to. Is it consistent where if somebody open enrolls into our district and they will continue to open enroll into our district? Or is it a volatile number and hard to plan around and therefore we kind of wanna limit that so that, because our teacher population is not something that's easily changed. So if we open enroll 10 seats and we fill them, and then we have to hire a teacher in a year, and then all of a sudden the open enroll just falls to the floor, is that kind of why we're trying to limit for some of these classes?
Right, so we're trying to use our staff that we have available at this time. Obviously, if we have a big influx of people moving into the district, we would have to hire a teacher to fill that. As far as open enrollment goes, unfortunately, because we have the seats, once these seats are full, it really decides the second round who can come in at that point based on our personal enrollment of kids that live in the district.
But historically, if I remember some of the other presentations that you gave, we typically have a negative enrollment figure, right?
Yes, we have more out than we have in.
Another question on the limits and the numbers on the ratio. Are those preferred for ideal teaching environments or are we limited in space?
So the last column, that is where the principals are kind of comfortable with class sizes.
From a physical perspective or a learning objective?
I would say more class management learning environment.
Okay.
Obviously our littlest students, we don't want those classes to be quite as large as some of the older students. And unfortunately with the middle school, when Maureen puts this in, it's based on the core teachers. So obviously, we don't typically have 30 students in a class, but that's just looking at those core classes. So that number really is not an accurate number of the actual class size. But the north and south numbers is closer to accurate.
And I will just tag on with that, Chris, just because I think when we think of Hartland-Lakeside and their philosophy on teaching, it's individualized, specialized instruction, student-centered learning. And so we want to ensure that best practice is always in place and we're taking care of our students. So specifically, their 4K kindergarten, we're going to keep those class sizes around that 18 to 20. Just from that perspective of that 1 to 20 ratio with six-year-olds. If you've ever experienced that in your world, even if you've had just a birthday party with 10 6-year-olds, it's a lot. So just management and I just think, when we think about when we start to talk about this open enrollment piece, we have to talk about the integrity of who we are, and we really pride ourselves on curricularly being we build upon it from kindergarten through 8th grade, and we talk about who we are as a portrait of a graduate at Hartland-Lakeside School District and the student who is here from 4K all the way through 8th grade versus a student that comes in 6th grade, doesn't have the same foundation. So when we're working on creating and developing and working on that 6th grader who comes to us from wherever, we love them and work with them just as the same as we do all of our students. But I will say that we do tend to have to probably provide more for those students. We want to just make sure that we're cognizant of our practice, if that makes sense.
Anybody else?
Well, I guess my question is, we're gonna either approve this or modify an improvement? I mean, I'm of the mind that we should move up a couple of those ones to a couple higher numbers, just so somebody doesn't self-select themselves out. But I'm not gonna, fight over it if people think that's.
So where do you think?
What's the worst case scenario if we get too many people in? And
Well,
we press
now you-
class size? I'm just playing devil's advocate,
Chris, I mean, I go back to Chris Adson's point. I mean, if you've got 5 teachers, you're worried about the teacher to student ratio, adding 1 versus 5 doesn't make that big a difference, right? Because you're only adding you gotta go in groups of 5, right? Because one class gets 1 more, but none of the other classes get more. So if we're comfortable going from 24 to 25 kids a class, then you can go to 1 versus 5, doesn't really matter, because you're not gonna screw up that ratio.
Is it public, how many open enrolled seats we're offering? Okay, dumb question, I figured.
That's why I just
Wouldn't be talking about this, but.
Look, I see all those ones stacked up in similar grades, so like, people tend to have kids closer together. If I had 2 kids, my 2 kids are 2 grades apart, right? And I went and looked at the school, I'm like, oh, I got 1 seat. I'm not gonna apply there, because I don't think, but we really could take a couple more students.
Once you open enroll, do you have to open enroll and apply every year?
No, you do not.
So once you're in, you're in.
You can have them reapply, basically when they change schools, but we don't have to do that at this time.
So look, I would make a motion to increase those, but I'm not gonna do it if you guys don't want it, so I don't wanna waste your time. Let's kind of like get across.
I'd like to ask your opinion on that. I mean, I'm looking at it as a non-classroom person sitting here on the board, looking at a spreadsheet, makes sense, more money, great, helps the district. Talk to it from your side.
Yeah, I mean, I think, clearly we send this to our admin team and have them look at it and say, yeah, we can do that. I think the optics of it, I don't disagree with you. There's a lot of really great choices out here, right? And it is work to apply to different schools. So, I mean, for me, 1 more student in a classroom, I don't feel comfortable doing it in the littles, right? I don't want to do it to that level. But if you feel like that, I understand your reasoning.
And that's really the only thing I think that Matt and I are hanging on right now, is that if we're saying we have to do 1, and we're okay doing the 1, is there really a difference between 1 and 5 when there's 5 teachers?
Well,
But
do we have to do
take
1?
more, we just can't
No,
take
no.
less.
Pardon?
We can take more, we just can't take less, if I have that correct.
You're exactly right, like
So
if
if 5
we can
people apply,
we can
we can
post
still
1
take
if
all
5
5.
show up, we can still take 5.
But
just
if you have
some-
5,
I see the
This
point
is
you're making.
optics for
but
me.
if you do 5, you can't take less than 5, if 5 people apply, you have to take all 5.
Look, the reality is, right, like we need a bunch of people like in kindergarten, right? So if we have a bunch of kindergartners apply and 3 of them happen to have brothers or sisters in 3rd through 5th grade, we're gonna take them and we're gonna go over that 5. What I wanna do is ensure that those people still apply and don't say, oh, there's only 1 there. When am I gonna get it? I gotta throw my hat in this lottery, and if they pull my number, I get it. I can go over here to Swallow, which was ranked 2 spots higher than us, and they got 5 seats there, so I'll just go to Swallow, because I gotta drive up here anyway.
What's the timing again on sending out the confirmations for open enrollment?
Well, open enrollment starts February 1st.
So we need to decide tonight what goes out.
So just sure.
Yep.
But then, I think it goes through April, so I think we've met early May, for a special board meeting to approve those. But to, Chris and Matt's point, because I have the actual spreadsheet open, so if you look at 1st grade and it says the class size or teacher ratio is 20.4, if I change that to a 5, it becomes 21.2. So it really is, as Matt is saying, 1 student per class. And it, again, it's just that comfort level, which maybe Christina has an education background, I don't. But like what that would do for a teacher at that grade level,
I mean, I think you can use the 1 more to be a slippery slope. I mean, 1 more, well, what's just 1 more, what's just 1 more, right? So I think there should be a hard limit based off of, academic experience that like for Hartland North, even if it's one more, we're not, if it's at 20, we're not going above that. But if maybe the middle school or the elementary or south, where it seems like we're a little more restrictive on the open enrollment, maybe that's where we bump it to 5 and we can always go back to 1 next year if we get really negative feedback from the staff. I think it's low risk. That's fine. I would go to matching the proposed seats to the number of teachers. That's it. I'm done. I talk too much.
Again, and I think we're looking at it more from the outside, not as the inside, not as the educator that's in that environment. And I don't think that we're looking at it to say, well, let's just throw more kids in there. I don't think that's the goal. It's just more from the perspective, if we're adding 1 to 1 teacher, is that the lowest rated teacher or is that the best teacher? Who gets the extra?
There's always so many factors, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could have this conversation of just about anything. Everybody gets an envelope and there's a red ticket inside. Who gets it, right? And how do you know that that student doesn't come in and doesn't have behavioral needs and then we've escalated into this whole other thing? I mean, we could do this all day long and talk about all the different scenarios. At the end of the day, if the board determines that a class size for 4K through 1st grade cannot exceed 18 children, then that's what we follow, and then we do 2nd grade through 5th grade cannot exceed 22 children, and so on and so forth, which is typically what districts do within a board policy that says classes are capped at a certain number.
Do we have into those recommendations or requirements today?
We don't.
Or do.
So last year, did we have ones that were out there?
Yes.
And how did we still get more?
We did.
So we were still getting more than what was there initially. And we just
For
took
sure.
what we could take.
We took what we could take, because it's important for us to take, students that are open enrolled in, because that's a revenue for us, right?
Correct. Especially when we're projecting a decrease. I think that just based on the logic of it, that's the only reason I brought up the question. It's not to challenge how many kiddos are in a class, it's not for that reason. It's just saying if we have to accept 1, there's 5 teachers and we have to accept 1.
I'm gonna make a motion on this, we talked about that on the South Elementary, that so 3rd through 5th, that we change this sheet we got from 1 to 5. No class, 1 class with the predicted number would be they'd all be at 25 or below, when right now they're at 24 or below. I would
Say that again,
propose
so you're motioning to.
Well, this is, can we cancel this mess? I have a motion, I just said like 40 things, you can't read down, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Let me redo, can I redo my
Yeah,
motion?
no
Or are we
problem.
good at
No
being
problem at
serious
all.
about this? Motion for 3rd through 5th, proposed open seats be 5 per class. And 7 and 8 also be 5 per class.
Yeah.
Everything else as presented.
And what was the other one? I'm so sorry.
7 and 8 at 5.
So I'm gonna restate it to see if it's correct. Metro motion to move 3rd through 5th to 5 per class and increase 7th and 8th to 5 seats. And approving the, I don't know how you wanna say it now,
Approve the remaining seats as presented.
and approve the remaining seats.
Does the motion need to be seconded before I can motion to amend it?
It does.
I have no idea.
Sorry,
Let's just work out the wording and do it.
I will second it.
All in favor?
I'd like the motion to amend it.
Discussion.
I motion to amend Matt's motion, to keep 7th at 1 and increase 8 to 4 instead of 5. So it matches the number of teachers, and the size of the 7th grade is already very large.
As I was writing, trying to keep up with you, but I'm not that fast. Can you say it again?
A motion to amend the motion to limit the number of proposed open enrollment seats in grade 7 to 1.
Hold on one second. In grade, what?
7 to 1. And grade 8 to 4.
Can I second it even though he modified mine? Second.
Okay, if you want to.
Okay, discussion?
My reasoning is that grade 7 is already at 30 kids per student. I think that's high, and I think it's smart to, since we only have anticipated 4 teachers for 8th grade, we're trying to keep the 1 student to 1 teacher guideline. That would be 4 open enrollment students instead of 5.
So this is like picture to picture, right? We're not talking about apartment complexes opening up maybe in the corner, or talking people moving in, so we're not, I'm just afraid we're trying to load up these classrooms right now with extra, and we always could if we needed to. We had more, it sounds like, last year than we had. So I'm very nervous to say we need to take more and more and more, which could become a cost, right? That means more teachers maybe, if we do get too much. So there's more of a cost, even though we got some money, now we're paying more for a teacher or 2 in these areas. So I'm reluctant, and I kind of want to take a step back and go, I feel like I'm gonna trust the numbers on what they're laying out and what comes in. So I lean to kind of leave it the way it is, as part of from my discussion standpoint.
I'm still in favor of I'm sorry, Madam President. I'm still in favor of the initial motion, given that Amy mentioned earlier that higher number is just the core class, that's not the norm. So I respectfully disagree and suggest that we still stick with the initial motion. And I would encourage my fellow board members to decline this one.
So which one are we voting on?
So we need to vote on the amendment first.
Correct. So right now, the motion on the floor is to amend the initial motion, limit the number of open enrollment seats in grade 7 to 1 and grade 8 to 4. That's the motion on the floor.
Just to be clear, that would amend Matt's, but keep his original numbers for 3, 4, and 5.
Correct.
Okay.
And
I
if
did that right.
If that passes,
Then we gotta vote
then we
again.
go back to the initial motion amended as presented.
Okay.
Sorry, I know this is really exciting.
Is there a second for this amendment?
Matt Schwab, second.
Matt seconded already.
Okay.
I didn't know how this was going. I got one.
All right, well, it's been
I'd
seconded,
rather
we
have,
have to
my
vote.
first one.
Right, we
So
discussed
all,
it.
right, so all in
I'm just gonna
favor
move this along.
Of the amendment.
of the amendment, correct?
Aye.
All not in favor?
No.
No.
Alright, so the amendment
Amendment
fails,
fails.
so we need to go back to the
To my
original.
original one.
Yes,
Now can we vote?
You want me to read it?
yes,
So the current motion on the floor is to move the 3rd through 5th grade to 5 per class and increase the 7th and the 8th grade to be 5 seats and approve the remaining seats as presented for the 2025-2026 school year.
Let's roll.
who is the second?
I seconded it.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay, motion passes.
I didn't know that was gonna be so contentious.
It's good discussion.
Okay. You need a minute, Chris?
I can clean it up later.
Okay.
And so I've got at least 30.
All right,
Thank you for asking.
yep.
Appreciate it.
District update for the superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you. Super excited about summer school. As we've started to really build this program out, you may or may not know that summer school is really probably the greatest revenue that a school district can have. And so we did it for years, for 8 weeks in the summer, and we had a bunch of different activities and came on board and kind of witnessed the first year of summer school and what that looked like. And then that second year made some changes this last year for summer school. We made it 6 weeks because we eliminated those kind of 2 weeks or that 1 week surrounding the holiday, the 4th of July, because we have really low absenteeism on that one. And then also the last week of summer school, so we reduced it from 8 weeks of summer school down to 6 weeks of summer school. And we kept everything else pretty much the same. We did bring back some enrichment for maybe some of our struggling learners to ensure that we didn't have such a slide in the summer. And we saw nearly our FTE is what it's based on, how many kids are there and the hours that they're there, which is why we always push attendance for summer school. But it increased to such a level that we actually increased our revenue by about $75,000, which was huge when you think that you gained, you got more with less. So we're keeping the same model, but we're changing the coursework. I really believe that we can do more enrichment. So some of the courses that we're doing is discovering dinosaurs. And so I'm super excited about these classes. I wrote the curriculum for them and we're kind of working with the teachers to try to build out what this looks like. And basically it's taking kids on a journey in the land of dinosaurs. And we've got classes for our, is it 4K through? And then our 3rd through 5th, and they're differing, right? So we've got discovering dinosaurs, we've got discovering space, we've got discovering underwater, discovering history, and they're all gonna be taken on these timelines and adventures. So we're pretty excited about some of the work with that. And then in addition to that, we're looking at a statistics class for our middle schoolers. We're looking at a babysitters club to teach first aid and how to be a better babysitter. We also are looking at utilizing our middle school students as leadership liaisons for the classrooms. So kind of providing a leadership opportunity for our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders if they want to do 8th graders. And they will be in the classrooms with our littles. So right along with them kind of guiding through some of the activities and the things that we're looking at doing. So please be watching for that. It's the Summer Splash 2.0. And we're really, really thrilled. And we are continuing on with that enrichment. Families really did appreciate the enrichment that we had. So we'll be looking for different coursework, again, sticking with that 6 weeks and let's just try to make sure that we get everybody there. So that's gonna be a lot of fun for us to do. Another thing that we continue to look at is that social studies science connection into the classroom. You'll recall last year we brought in the space shuttle. And that was really cool for our 3rd through 5th graders. So while I was at convention just this last week, I saw, I don't know if anybody else may have seen it, but it was a digitarium. I made the mistake of calling it a planetarium because we've moved beyond planetarium into digitarium. And what that is a big dome, and it has way more than stars and constellations. It's got planets, and you can go back in history and see what the sky looks like. And the teacher is super creative, and she comes in and does this whole thing for 4K through 2nd graders. So we're going to work with, hopefully, HLEF. I had a conversation with their board president today about writing a grant to try to get that, bringing that field trip to the school, right? And kind of having the kids have an opportunity to see things a little bit differently. So really kind of excited about all of those pieces. I do feel the need to just address some of this ick, for lack of a better word. I think I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't know how I can win, right? I'm listening to all of the feedback and I'm adjusting and I'm trying to make things right and do it right and say the right thing and use the right word and do it in the right time. And I just want you to know that at the end of the day, the only thing that matters to me is the safety of your kids. And I know that you might not feel that is an actual statement, that is true. I don't write emails, especially these types of emails, without consulting with legal consultation. I have to, and I know that there's some feelings out there that I can get more information on the scanner, I can get more information. You can, I'm not those entities, right? I am held to a different standard as the superintendent. Do I like that I'm held to a different standard? Absolutely not, right? I'm a parent too. If I could tell you everything that was going on, I'm going to. But to sit and not have the understanding that I absolutely worked my tail off on both of the incidents that occurred in December, and they both have resolution. And I know that that's hard to know. This board doesn't even know that because we're meeting about it in executive session tonight. So I just think it's really important. I'm the one that grabbed my coat and run out the door right before this board meeting because our kids are involved. So I ask for grace, I ask for your patience and your time and understanding in that I am not here to put any child at risk. I am actually here to do the opposite. And I am trying to listen. I've got a parent leadership council that I'm working with to try to get out the good word and to be able to share. But I'm sorry that sometimes I'm harsh and I'm not sorry. I have to be. There are moments where I have to be empathetic. There are moments where I have to be more direct, and I am, and I'm working through that. So I think what I'm sorry about is that you feel the way that you do about something I'm so passionate about. And I think that's the part that I can't grapple with, right? I struggle with that, understanding, gosh, I'm so, like, this is what keeps me awake at night. And people feel that I'm not in that place. And so it's a work in process. We just have to keep working on it. And I have to keep trying and keep writing. But that is where I'm at. And I just felt like I needed to say something and address it because it does hit.
Chris has something to say.
Just a quick little compliment to you as well. You have faced some very difficult things that have happened, unforeseen, very difficult to plan around. But I do want to also compliment you, at least from our perspective, and as a parent, that when there are certain events that happened, you did react very quickly. And as a prime example for anyone in the audience that maybe wasn't aware, didn't know, or didn't notice, the backpack rule immediately was instituted after an incident. There was no hesitation, there was no question, and it was immediate. And so I would like to encourage you to continue to follow your gut and do what you're doing. It doesn't mean you're perfect, it doesn't mean we're perfect, nobody's perfect. But you are doing the right things, and you're doing it from the right heart posture. I appreciate your diligence and hard work with it, so please take that into consideration as well.
Can I share something as well? I mean, I'm new to the board, I've been on for a year. I've shared some of your frustrations with some of the communications as well that have come out. When the December incident happened, we had a board meeting within a day where we all got on a Zoom to talk about it. Sitting through the process, unfortunately, a lot of this stuff, the hands are tied on what we can communicate to the public on this stuff. So it's, if it was your student on the other side of it causing the harm, until everything has gotten out, we can't have Tina blasting a kid out on social media that this kid is awful, they're doing all this stuff, and this is what happened. It's like there's a process we have to follow. So I've shared some frustration. It's been less getting behind the scenes and understanding what we can and can't communicate. So in my mind, there's no good answer for a lot of this stuff. A lot of people want to know everything, and a lot of people just want to know something. So do you communicate every time something happens? Do you never communicate? Do you just communicate to the classroom versus the entire school district? It's tough, it's a delicate balance. So yes, could we do a little bit better in some of this stuff? Probably. Unfortunately, it's probably never going to get you probably the level of transparency and insight into exactly what's happened or exactly what the punishment is or that sort of thing. But she gets on these calls and sometimes she's trying not to cry because it's very upsetting to her that she's having to deal with this, and these are her students that this is happening to. So there's true empathy and care for this stuff that's happening. They're difficult situations.
That's better than being ignored. I know it's not my place to say, but I appreciate that a lot. Just that it being explained to us is so much more valuable than just being ignored completely. I have these special concerns when I don't get any response. Zero.
Everything Matt just said was what I was going to say as well. And I see Tina cry all the time because the number one thing she is here for is for our kids. And every single one of us sitting on this board has kids in this school as well. So you better believe we want our kids to be safe. And our kids are experiencing the same incidences that your kids are experiencing. And when we say there are certain things we cannot say because of legal, it is the truth. It is not an excuse. We have to protect our district as well. If the district's not protected, your kids aren't protected either. There is so much more to the behind the scenes than anyone understands. And it is incredibly frustrating for us to not be able to just tell you everything that's going on, but we can't because we're trying to protect all the kids involved. I know that sounds crappy in some ways when a kid has done something that has threatened the other kids or put the other kids in danger, but we are here to protect all the kids and we have to do that and we have to follow what our lawyers are telling us to do. So like I said, there's not one single person up here that does not care immensely about every student in this school. We all have something to lose if our kids are not safe. So yes, please give Superintendent Logelman grace because she is doing the very best she can and she cares deeply about this district.
Yeah, and the only thing, it sucks because time is what we need to go through all the processes there, but it's really to protect the process so that we don't make mistakes. And sometimes we have to be impartial and be out of some of these things. So it's hard to comment, but we all have kids and I've got a 7th grader here with everything in 7th grade prior to coming to the board. So somebody said, I try not to get too involved with it. She cares about all of that and everything, it's quick and the actions happen fast. So I do appreciate that. That's there.
Okay, Amy, or Deanna, did you have anything else under the updates? Okay. Moving on to the monthly finance report.
Yes, so we're looking at December. Excuse me, for Fund 10, or General Operations, some of the revenue that we received was General Equalization Aid, which is great, because that was just over $1 million. We are still earning interest on our savings account. As you may be aware, interest rates are dropping, so it did come down another 0.24%. But we were able to earn about $11,400, so that's still good news. The rest is tied to school fees or extracurricular activities. For expenses, if you look at the report, everything seems to be good and on budget at this time. When you compare to this time last year, we're actually a little less, which I believe Matt also highlighted, so that's great. For Fund 27, that is our special education fund. We did receive an aid payment of just over $100,000. And then every month we do that inter-fund transfer for Fund 10 to Fund 27, and that was about $122,000. Again, looking at the expenses for a special education program, everything looks again to be on budget to where it should be at this time of year, as well as compared to last year. We're not far off from that program as well. Fund 46, that is our capital improvement account. That is where we're earning interest on future big projects. The interest on that account was $6,700 for the month of December. For Fund 50, that is our food service. We did receive some federal funds, which was our breakfast aid and lunch aid, and that was about $31,000. And then the rest of that would be food service deposits for our students and families. And then Fund 80 is the community service account, and that is our daycare. So everything is tied directly to them. So revenue and expenses for that program. You will see that our savings and checking were low as we expected to be in December, but we did receive our first tax payment in January, which we'll share more about next month. Are there any questions at this time? No?
Okay, discussion and decision on the north roof bids.
Yes, so we went to RFP.
on the north roof, to do a replacement. That process did bring us 3 bids. So you will see that in, board docs. And then Greg and I just came up with our metrics and some sort of measurement and score, for reviewing those 3 bids. I did review this with the finance committee. They did have some additional questions. One of them was what the warranty, would be for the roof replacement. In the RFP, it did say for a 5-year manufacturing labor, warranty, and that is what all 3 provided.
Did you say 5?
5-year, yes. Otherwise, the information that we were considering for this process is obviously that, you know, they have been in business or had experience for at least 5 years, that we received some positive references from prior companies they had worked with. And then, of course, because we're in education, we need to keep those costs low. So we were looking at the roof cost itself. There's some masonry work, chimney work that needs to be done. And then there's some skylights that were covered that just need to be reinforced before they put the new roof down. So that's why there's 3 different costs broken out there. We did weigh those, and that's how we came up with the scores. At this time, Greg and I both thought Hernandez Roofing, at least and most of that is based on costs, but they have been in business for more than 5 years and were able to provide some references as well. I know it's a lot of information to look at and review. Are there any questions that anyone else had, or that Matt or Chris wanted to bring up from our finance committee meeting?
Let's talk about servicing. Did you reach out and ask about?
Yes, all of them actually are in the area. I know.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, so that was good too.
Did Greg have any input? Did he think one way or the other?
He did fill out the form. He has worked with Langer in the past, and they had positive references as well. But they did come in a little higher than the Hernandez Roofing. So Hernandez would be new to us, but they have worked on some big projects as well. So.
Is there a contingency built in to any of the alternatives in terms of if there's something unexpected that would end up being covered?
Yes, so the work is supposed to start in June. There is some rain delay or weather delay kind of things built into it. There is, I believe, a bond if they were not to meet the deadline, that would come into play as well. So we are trying to get this done obviously over summers with early August completion.
I guess I meant from a construction standpoint, a lot of times in the bids, there's a contingency fund in case there's something that's unexpected that comes across and it's already budgeted in there, so they're not coming back to asking for more money.
We do not have that in the roofing.
Okay, and that wasn't in their quotes, okay.
No. We worked with Inspect engineers to come up with the RFP process. So they kind of did the outline for us on what that bid would look like.
And are these paying from general or from capital?
This is from general.
We budgeted for this, so
Thank you.
this will be one of the big items we're not pulling from our,
What did we budget?
Yeah, I was gonna ask
We
that.
budgeted $350.
so we're coming in, each of these quotes is under budget with obviously Hernandez being about 3,000 less than.
I mean, this is so tough because they don't like quality over.
Well, that's what I leaned on what Greg said. I mean, Chris Hagland's more attuned to this stuff. He has some good questions in our finance meeting. I mean, I asked, you know, did one feel better than the other? I mean, the one, Langer's more expensive. They have more kind of local school references, but it wasn't like Hernandez had bad references. They just weren't schools. So
If you and Greg, there's actually comments on this.
in my mind, you know,
Where are the comments?
And Greg's.
If you open
Decision
Greg's matrix,
Oh.
he typed in what the reference piece was because he's the one who spoke to them.
Oh, I see that.
Um, And he actually did not receive references from that.
Yeah, the highest price bid, Christensen didn't provide any references, and they were the highest price bid, so that one's kind of out in my mind, so it's like Hernandez or Langer. Langer's, I'm trying to do the math to get them all up, is about $30,000 or $40,000 less. They had, they've worked with so I mean, they haven't done as many schools apparently, because they didn't give us school budgets, but, so I was inclined, both the scorings had Hernandez higher, but that was a little bit function of the scoring was heavily weighted towards cost, so that's what drove it down. So it's like,
That's what we asked,
in my mind,
make
you
sure
have to.
warranty might have something there, but they're all 5 years.
Right, the warranty was no difference. Chris had a good question that he looked up Hernandez. It looked like it was an Illinois-based company, but they do have local operations, so we're not concerned about somebody.
Service calls after they're gone.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's gonna cost you whatever, because we gotta drive up from wherever they're in Illinois.
They will have a similar duration for the project.
Yeah, I mean, they both said they get it done over the summer, so that's the plan.
The only thing, if likely to look between the two, Langer did come in under budget before, which was a reference they got from Hartland.
What was that? Can you say that again?
Sure.
It said they came in under budget,
So
which
they
must
did,
means they must have
Village of
priced
Hartland,
it
they came in under budget.
Oh, the Village of Hartland, I'm sorry.
Or they have a contingency built into their cost.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know.
So look, in my mind, it's Hernandez or Langer. Hernandez is a little bit cheaper and nobody got a bad feeling from them and they've got some decent references, so that was where I thought my recommendation.
Not that it's any comparable, but I've used the cheapest contractor for home improvements and I've used a middle of the road contractor, and there's definitely a difference in quality of work. But again, that's a home improvement project, hiring somebody, not roofing an entire building.
Do you know, Amy, the references for Hernandez, were they, I'm assuming, commercial?
Yes.
And any local, or were those out of state? If you remember, right?
Greg is the one who actually spoke to him. I believe it was all local though.
Okay, thank you. And for me, it's tough when you're talking a 15% higher roughly. That's a lot at this number. It's a lot. And unless there's a real red flag, just saying that the lowest cost might not be the best. If there's nothing that's really standing out as a concern, and you're talking 15%, I think it's a big number.
That was my thinking.
It is.
If there was a concern, different story, and if the amount was minimal, 1%, and there's a track record in schools with lots of local presence, and we're talking 1%, okay, then it might be worth it just for the consistency of school. But 15% higher, that's
Yeah,
a good
It's
number.
not, I think we need the,
I'd like to approve Hernandez roofing bid.
A second.
It's really hard to participate. Alright, and then motion to approve the Hernandez bid?
correct.
Did you name the amount or do we not need to?
As presented.
Thank you. And Niels, you seconded?
Yes.
Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay,
Good work, Amy, and great.
Yeah.
Thank you,
The matrix was very helpful.
very.
Really appreciate that.
okay, future board and committee actions or discussion items. Does anyone have anything for future board discussion?
I have two.
Okay,
One, I would like us to look at and consider the investments, costs, and return on investments for our association with the WASB.
Can I ask what somebody need to bring something for that, just so, or is this something, do you have the information you wanna talk about? Or are you looking for somebody to bring
don't
something?
really, I'd like to look at what we're paying and then evaluate if what we're paying outweighs what we're receiving.
Is that?
It's a large, I did ask some questions ahead of the meeting and he was kind enough to put it together. And it's a decent number. It's a decent number. So I'd just like us to evaluate that, I think, as a total board and see if that expense is warranted.
I'm asking, are you looking for something from Chris and I from finance to bring to the meeting on that, or does Amy and you guys have the information?
We will
Okay.
provide information
I don't know if there's
to
anything
kind of
we
guide
can
the discussion.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. I think some of the questions that I previously asked Amy will be a guide to start. And then maybe that'll take you down. You might end up going outside of just the finance.
No, that's fine, I don't want you to show up and say, oh, what are we spending on? Like, I don't know.
I wouldn't do that.
It's a topic
I'd
I'm
give you a heads
responsible
up.
for, I wanna get.
That's not fair. I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't call you.
Okay.
The second item is I'd like to consider discussion about a transparent policy on open records requests. Our district seems to get a lot of those requests, and while that's obviously the right of people, I don't think sometimes people realize the cost of the district, not just financial, but resource, time, the IT department, the scrubbing of emails, the legal questions that we have to go to our legal department over those things. And as part of a transparent communication with our taxpayers as well, I think we might want to revisit what information is shared and potentially consider sharing the records request, the requester, or the amount, the time, the resource, and how it's impacting our kids. Because while information is available and it's something people can request, there's a cost. Every time the administration is focusing on answering questions that are very broad, there's some that could generate 300,000 hits. Somebody has to read through those. So I think that's something that I think we owe it to our taxpayers to let them know what's the cost of some of that inquiry.
Something that you want, like, I mean, we have a policy committee, do we start there, or do we start a discussion as a
I
board?
think you're looking for informational presentation, right, rather than policy. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much.
I don't think you can change I mean, there's certain things we're required to do.
You're talking about creating a policy where we develop a protocol or process that informs the community on where we're at on that, like a monthly report on our ORs?
I think that's more of a best practice. I don't think that's
Okay.
necessarily a policy that governs. I think it's, go ahead.
So I remember when I first came on board and there was that hot
Yeah,
mess
there's a
of the
process.
situation.
There's a
There is
definite
definite
process.
process,
Yeah,
and we did
that's not my
say
concern.
that's where we would go. So,
Yeah.
you know, we can put it as an old business item. We can just have it be a standing order within, under old business. We could put it under superintendent's report, because I'm the one that houses all of that. I'm happy to do whatever the board decides they would like for me to do, to just share out that report.
And so I'm trying to understand what you want out of it, other than we're getting a lot of open record requests and it's a lot of cost and time and energy and effort to the district. Like, is that just something that you want the board to discuss, or do you want some change in action for us as a board to agree on to direct the administration?
Great question. Am I able to answer?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think in an effort of transparency to the taxpayer, I think the taxpayer needs to understand these requests and the effect they have on the district. The information's public, so someone could submit an ORR to ask who are the people submitting ORRs and what are the costs. I mean, they could do that too. But I think it would be a good thing for us to proactively provide that information to the community. There are certain requests that sometimes are frequent, sometimes
Sure.
by same people frequently. And those continual barrage of requests, and again, the information is public and they're entitled to it, but it comes at cost. And I think our taxpayers deserve to know what impact that's having on our district and the cost.
There have been feeder schools in our area that do like a monthly report. I know Swallow was doing one for a while because they were getting a barrage of, I think they were like $100,000 in on like
I'm not-
COVID ORs.
Let's talk about it next month and figure out what.
That's
That's I'm trying to figure out what the action is on.
Today, nothing.
Well, that's what,
Yeah.
that's what.
So
Yeah,
an
this-
item to discuss potential board
Yes,
action.
yep.
Yeah,
That's all I'm asking.
that's what I was trying to understand.
As far as marching orders for that, do you want me to go through the process and what it looks like when an ORR comes in and how that rolls out, so you see that during that presentation? Like, do you want me to present that? Or do you just wanna discuss what you wanna do so that, just because we have new people on the board since we determined that, I didn't know if that was.
I would think it would be helpful,
Yeah,
not only
refresh.
for
Just a quick.
I think
board
that-
members, but also the
Half hour
community.
presentation.
Oh gosh, no,
Okay.
5 minutes, just a quick overview.
Yeah.
Yeah, quick overview.
15 slide minimum.
It won't even do that.
No, because there, you've, and again, to compliment you, that you've done a really good job since you came, in revamping the program and creating a very systematic process on how they come in, how they're answered, and the time in which they are. But as they continue to come in, and the requests are broad, there are,
Anything else?
that was my only two, thank you, Madam President.
Anybody else? Okay, PPC committee meeting, determine your date.
Shooting from the hip right at the moment, because we haven't talked prior to.
It's the best way to shoot, right? It's not the best way to shoot. I'm flexible. However, I am here every Wednesday from 4 to 5, running Dungeons and Dragons. But I am flexible around that too.
Maybe we do it at 5, so I can
You gonna play?
Is that okay for these two, you guys? But these ladies have worked all day and need to get home, so.
Yeah, so well, I can do it during the day, I can do it, I am an early riser, I don't know anybody's schedule at this point. So I don't know if there's a preference from you guys, if it's before, during, after.
Post-COVID, I'm much more limited during the day. I work in Madison, have a commute, so I'm limited. I'm open to early mornings or, it doesn't have to be late night, but
When did you do it? Was there a time that worked before when
We
Amy
do
was
it
on?
at 4 o'clock-ish.
4 o'clock?
We would often just make sure that it was scheduled in advance, or we'd do 5. Yeah, 5 o'clock is fine, I can do 5 o'clock. What I can't do is promise I can leave at 4 o'clock in the morning to be here for a 6 o'clock meeting, I just can't pull that off.
I wouldn't expect that.
I didn't ask, I'm open to it. but I didn't ask.
I mean, I like 4 o'clock, I would rather not have you wait an hour for us. Just not 4 o'clock on a Friday.
Yeah.
So what do your Monday, Tuesdays look like, or Thursdays?
Tuesdays are out, Mondays are not terrible. Thursdays are probably better, given that it's not a crazy month.
Okay, so
And how soon,
When's our next board meeting, 17th? Can we do Thursday the 13th?
we have a special board meeting on February the 10th.
I can do the 13th on Thursday. That works.
Are we sticking with that special board meeting on the
No,
10th? No, I thought we were
We
combining.
wanted to condense them.
Yeah, we'll combine.
Okay,
Yeah, okay, so.
So the 13th does work?
it works for me.
And we can do it at 4?
If you can do that, Chris, yes.
I can make that happen. We can
Better at
be-
4:30?
Yeah, we can be, no, as long as we can be wrapped up before 6, there's a kindergarten celebration concert that evening that I would sure like to attend. Since I have 2 of them
Absolutely.
in there.
So 4 o'clock on the 13th.
If I was reserving time on my calendar in a block, how long should I reserve for
90
this?
minutes.
90 minutes, thank you.
We'll get all that information to you in advance. He has an advantage because he's read all of the 5,000 series. And we're just making tweaks to it from an administrative perspective, working with Neola. So I'll get you all of those updates and we'll go from there, okay?
Let's go.
Okay, so you guys all got that down. 17th is also a workshop, it's no longer on the 10th.
Okay?
At
5 o'clock. And then our homework is to come with. Oh, okay, one sec, I'll go back.
Yeah, that's good.
Just make sure you guys come with your goals and measurables and timelines for the pillars.
Wednesday, February 12th, 9 a.m. Chris Hagel and I already discussed it, we're gonna
Hold on, give me a minute, I'm going between screens. I put it in the calendar, I gotta take notes.
9
9 a.m. Wednesday, February 12th.
Thank you, 9 a.m. You said February 12th?
Correct.
Thank you. And the board workshop is Monday the 17th at 5 p.m., correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Everybody good with schedule?
yes.
Okay, so that is concluding our school board meeting. We are moving into executive session, which is our closed session where the public is not a part of. Thank you guys all for coming.
Motion to move closed session at 8:09.
Second that.
Okay, oh, wait.
Motion.
Ashwell.
Matt
No one here?
Oh, crap. Just lost my computer.
We're live.
No.
We're live.
Alright, so we're gonna have to do this the old fashioned way because I lost my computer.
I got it.
You got it?
Yep.
Alright,
I'll make a motion to approve the superintendent contract as discussed in closed session.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to make, tell me when you're ready, Chris.
alright,
Second motion to approve the personnel decisions as discussed in closed session.
I'll second that. All in favor?
aye,
Motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:46.
I'll second that.
All in
What time?
favor? 9:46.
9:46.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You can see the laptops today.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
I got it.
Express your frustration.